is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes,
He's going for it.
Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it. One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And yeah, normally I don't record episodes straight after a game, as I like to rewatch the game, watch highlights, and find some talking points to talk about, because, you know, usually when you record an episode or you want to talk about a game right after a game, you're running a little bit hot, and you might have some takes you take back the next day. So yeah, we'll see what I say in this episode, what I might not agree with in the future, but I don't know. I think I'm doing pretty well from how some fans are acting on social media. I saw one guy who apparently is like so upset. I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, that basically wants Jim Curtin fired, wants him to stop playing the 4-4-2 diamond because apparently it doesn't get results. But yeah, I don't know. Apparently that guy knows a lot more than Jim Curtin and Ernst Tanner, where, you know, win the Supporters Shield, win some playoff games last season, could have won on and played in the MLS Cup final if it wasn't for COVID. Even with the youth players, you know, they had a chance against New York City, but apparently none of that's good enough. None of that matters because Jim Curtin doesn't know what he's doing. And yeah, it's so funny when you look, because the Union are still on top of the Eastern Conference, and this one fan apparently thinks Jim Curtin's not doing a good enough job. So it's always funny watching what people say on social media, because you get a lot of great takes, but you get a lot of terrible takes from people. And yeah, I thought as a fan base, I thought we were way past the Jim Curtin out, but I guess this guy was pro Pat Noonan or something. I don't know. But I want to give a shout out to all the fans that traveled to Nashville, all the Union fans that went down to Nashville for this game, all the media that went down to Nashville to cover this game. You guys did a phenomenal job supporting the Union. I think I was talking to my friend Billy. I think he said there's 96 Union fans that went on this trip, a ton of Union fans. I mean, they panned to you guys. I'm sure all you guys watching from home, you guys saw all the Union fans that they panned to after Mikael Uhre scored the goal, and all those guys are just jumping up and down, duping, and yeah, you'd love to see it. Just a good traveling supporters group going to away stadiums. It's away games. If you haven't done it, you know, I definitely suggest going to an away game, even if it's going up to Red Bull Arena, going down to DC. A lot of fun. Looking forward to some potential away games this season for myself, but yeah, all those people that went to Nashville, hopefully you guys had a great time. Hopefully you guys have safe travels coming back home. And yeah, just seeing Larry Henry Jr., I believe, and Matt Ralph from the Brotherly game. I believe these two guys were down representing the Union media. And it was great to see some Union media down there. Wasn't sure if anybody was going to go. And yeah, those two guys were down there representing the Union media back at home. But yeah, all in all, point on the road, I guess you'll take it, right? So I'll go over that game here in a second. Have a lot of MLS news I want to get to. I want to kind of keep this episode short compared to what I normally do, because I have an episode. Everything's scheduled. Hopefully nothing changes. Tuesday, I have a very, very exciting guest. And I know I told you guys before, anytime that I've told you guys I have a guest coming on the podcast, usually it never happens. And I always jinx myself. So I really hope I'm not jinxing myself here with this. But, you know, everything's confirmed. This is a guy who I've been wanting to talk to for a very long time. And I'm very honored to have the chance to pick his brain, hear his story. And I think that's an episode that all of you guys are going to enjoy. So I want to keep this episode short, because nobody likes back-to-back podcast episodes, I feel like. Maybe you guys do, but looking forward to just the rest of this podcast, but especially the podcast that I'm going to record and release on Tuesday. So keep your eyes peeled for that one, and I'm sure all of you guys are going to enjoy that episode. But nonetheless, like I said, a lot of news. Talk about that Nashville Philadelphia Union game. Talk about my keys to the game, breaking down the goals. Going to skip blunder of the week. I'll go ahead and give my 3-star players, but let's just go straight into the news. So as always, I'm sure a lot of you guys that pay attention to MLS, you guys have probably already seen this midweek. But for all you guys that don't really pay attention to MLS, that's why I always review the news in case you guys missed it. And starting off, Charlotte FC, according to Tom Bogert, have agreed a deal in principle to acquire forward Andre Shinyashiki from the Colorado Rapids for up to $400,000 in GAM. $225,000 in GAM guaranteed. His playing time dwindled down this season compared to years prior with Colorado. And some of you guys may remember him. Some of you guys might not remember him. He was a Rookie of the Year player a few years ago. Tom Bogert said that the player and the club tried to work for a solution, and ultimately they decided that moving on from each other was in best interest for both parties. In 84 appearances, Andre had 16 goals for Colorado, and that comes out to be an average of 50 minutes per game in his time in Colorado. He'll be 25 in June, and it's kind of like, I'm not saying this is a similar situation to Julian Granza, but what's similar is people, and I'm guilty for this myself too, when I looked at the numbers for Julian Granza when it was announced that the Union had acquired him on loan from Inter Miami. People looked at the amount of goals that he scored in the amount of games. And when you look at it, and Julian Granza didn't start a lot of games. He only played like 15, 20 minutes per game when he was coming off the bench, sometimes even less. And so 50 minutes per game is not a ton of time for Andre. Like I said, his minutes this year weren't there where he was probably hoping to go out and get Gyasi Zardes from Columbus Crew, a proven goal scorer. And, we see it all the time in sports and soccer where a change of scenery might benefit a player. And I told you guys last episode when I previewed last week's game, I thought a change of scenery was going to be good for Gyasi. I think a change of scenery will probably be good for Andre. And, Charlotte, they do need experienced players in MLS. And so they get a player that, has proven he can score in MLS. He's not old at all. Like I said, he'll be 25 in June. And, maybe this is what he needs to kickstart his career. I was looking at Transfer Market the other day. He's listed at a value of $3.5 million, which is like insane to me because, again, 16 goals in 84 appearances isn't a lot. But you got to look at the bigger pictures. How many times is he coming off the bench? How many minutes is he playing per game? And those 84 appearances came out to be 50 minutes per game. So, the numbers the last couple of years have dwindled down for Andre, and we'll see if he can kickstart his career in Charlotte. But moving on, Real Salt Lake, they have completed and signed an agreement to bring back Venezuelan winger Jefferson Sarvino from Atletico Mineiro. Reporting is Fabrizio Romano. And you guys might remember the name from his time with Real Salt Lake a few years ago. There's a guy who left Real Salt Lake to go to Atletico Mineiro, where he tore it up in Brazil. 21 goals, 21 assists, and 93 appearances during his time in Brazil. And during his time with the Rapids, he had 21 goals and 21 assists as well in 82 regular season appearances. The Rapids are paying $2 million with incentives that could reach up to $500,000, so the total deal could be $2.5 million. And Atletico Mineiro also have a 20% sell-on clause listed in the contract to any future sale. He's only 25 years old, so bringing back a player that was a fan favorite, a player that knows how to play in MLS. A lot of his same teammates are still at the club, so not much has changed for Jefferson since he was last there at Real Salt Lake. I guess the only thing that's changed is Ruzanek isn't there anymore, but I think this is a signing that Real Salt Lake fans can be happy about. A player that, like I said, 21 goals, 21 assists, knows how to play in MLS, will make a difference for Real Salt Lake. They have 3 wins on the season, I believe 3 draws, something like that. So, the season's still young, and they definitely have themselves in a good position to get into the playoffs. Jim Curtin says it all the time. You guys have heard me say it multiple times on this podcast where, you know, you don't really get a full understanding of the teams that are going to be fighting for a playoff spot until after 10 games. And, looking at what Real Salt Lake have done so far in 10 games, sorry, I misspoke. I'm looking at it now. 4 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses. And it's really good for Real Salt Lake. Sit fifth in the Western Conference. So, again, just bringing in a familiar player that has played at Real Salt Lake, played in MLS. I think that's a good signing for Real Salt Lake. And I'm sure for Real Salt Lake fans out there, they're very, very happy with the signing. And the last thing I want to talk about is Hany Mukhtar and Walker Zimmerman. I'm sure you guys saw this. I believe it was announced on Friday that both players have signed DP contracts that will go through the 2025 MLS season, while Hany Mukhtar's contract has an option for the 2026 season. Walker Zimmerman, he is finally becoming a DP player. He was previously on a TAM deal, and Jim Curtin even said after the game he's happy to see a defender finally get paid. I think Walker's new contract will pay him just over $10 million, and you don't see center backs really get paid DP money, and who better to pay than Walker Zimmerman? I mean, I think Jack Elliott, Jacob Glesnes, I think they're both right up there with Walker Zimmerman, and luckily for the Union, neither one of those guys have came to the team and said, "Hey, we want to be paid DP money," and maybe that changes with the Walker deal. But luckily for the Union, both of those deals that the Union got done for Jacob and Jack Elliott were before the Walker Zimmerman deal. So I don't see either one of these players, all of a sudden now getting disgruntled and wanting to renegotiate a new deal after they just signed new contracts. But, maybe in a few years, if both players are still at the club, we could see Jacob Glesnes, Jack Elliott become the next DP center back in the league. I've seen people in the past say that, there should be 4 DPs, that the 4th DP spot should be for an American player. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. I do like the idea. I think it is good to pay American talent to keep them in the league. I think Walker Zimmerman is good enough to play in Europe. And I know I've seen people say on social media that, oh, well, he'll go and have a big World Cup with the United States, and then he'll definitely leave to go to Europe. I mean, I guess anything's possible, right? If Nashville get a huge offer from Europe, but I don't think you sign a contract that's going to pay you $10 million over the next couple of years, because will teams in Europe come close to paying him that? Yeah, I'm not sure, maybe. But, your mid-level teams in Europe, your championship-level teams, not saying Walker's a championship-level player, but they're not going to be paying him what Nashville are paying him now on a DP deal. So maybe that's something to keep an eye on. Will MLS eventually allow a 4th DP spot, and that 4th DP spot needs to be for an American player? I think it's a interesting thought that I've seen talked about on social media. I think if MLS wants to keep their top talent here in MLS, that maybe that becomes a possibility. Look, you already see Dallas paying Jesus Ferrer DP money, and he's an American player. I think at the end of the day, I mean, your very, very best players are going to go abroad, play in Europe, because ultimately that's where players want to be. They want to be in Europe, playing in the top leagues. MLS definitely isn't there, but I don't know. Maybe 5-10 years from now, why can't MLS be a top league? And I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves now, but 5-10 years, I mean, maybe DPs aren't a thing. Maybe teams are able to spend as they will. So that's something that I think we should keep our eyes on. Are more American players, number one, getting DP deals? 2, would MLS entertain a 4th DP spot? And would that 4th DP spot just be for American players. So that's pretty much it. Everything I want to talk about in regards to the news. Yeah, I know Inter Miami, they just had the stadium announced and where they're allowed to have their stadium be built in Miami, Freedom Park, I believe it's going to be called. So I there could have been so much more I wanted to say. A lot I could have said about that whole Miami situation, but like I said, I don't want to have this episode be too long. So let's just get straight into the Nashville versus Philadelphia Union, my overall thoughts. And like I said in the intro, you take points on the road. You take a point on the road, especially from a hostile environment that was Geodis Park. But if we can be honest here for a minute, that should have been 3 points for the Union. The Union worked their butts off in this game, especially defensively when Nashville brought a ton of pressure within the first 10, 15 minutes of this game. It was all about weathering the storm, and they did that. The Union did that, in my opinion. The Union had a chance on the third minute, I believe it was, with Ua, who had a shot from a tough angle. And, I think that moment right there was a wake up call for Nashville, where they realized they could have been behind early. And we've seen the last couple of games for the Union, they've started pretty hot within the first 5 minutes of the games, having early shots on target. Haven't been able to put the ball in the back of the net, but I think that's one good thing to see that, in years past, the Union have started games slow. I know I talked about it a ton last year. I believe it was like the first 15 minutes, the Union had conceded a ton of goals. And people were like, ugh, getting tired of hearing this stat, Todd, because, the Union keep conceding early on. But, it's something I wanted to make you guys aware of to pay attention to. And eventually the Union got that corrected. And now it seems like the Union got it corrected so much where now they're the team that's taking the shots. And it's just about getting that early goal within the first 10, 15 minutes of the game, which I think we'll definitely see a lot of going forward from the Union. But we saw Nashville just have two shots. One hit the post, one hit the crossbar. And the Union were lucky to catch a break on both of those moments. But hey, look, they didn't break and they didn't concede the goal, either one of those goals, and were able to weather that storm. Nate Harriel, I thought he did an excellent job defending 1v1 against Hany Mukhtar. The two center backs, they were excellent with always being aware of where Hany was or would be. Jose Martinez, for the most part, had a solid game, I thought, tracking Hany Mukhtar, forcing him in deeper positions, not at the 18-yard box where he likes to dominate games. Andre Blake continues just to be Andre Blake. I mean, I say it all the time. Like, what more can I say? What more can you guys say about Andre Blake than just saying, yeah, Andre Blake continues to steal points for this club. Andre Blake continues to be the best goalkeeper in MLS. Unlucky not to have saved the penalty. He guessed the right way. Really liked what I saw from the Union offensively and defensively on set pieces. Unlucky not to have scored, one of those second chances where Nashville would fail to clear the ball from the set piece. Union had a couple chances to put the ball in the back of the net off of the second attempt. Jacob Glesnes, I think, had an attempt at two with a free header that he hit right at Joe Willis. It's a good thing to see. The Union just continuing to create chances off of set pieces. And yeah, one of these chances are definitely going to pay off for the Union with a header. But, it was unfortunate that Jose had a handball that led to the goal for Nashville. Corey Burke was lucky that he didn't have a handball called against him, which, by the way, I think was 100% a handball. I guess, it had to be clear and obvious. They didn't give it on the field initially as a handball, so they go to VAR. Penso doesn't see it as clear and obvious, and the Union catch a break. From my perspective, I'm sure all you guys watching at home too, you guys thought that, yeah, it hit Corey Burke on his arm. It should have been a penalty, and luckily the Union did not concede a penalty there. And I think one thing that is interesting, and I know, sometimes people are like, oh, stop with the stats. And some people are like, yeah, I don't mind the stats. I'll bring up an interesting stat here for you guys where when the Union scored the goal, That was their first goal that they've scored after the 61st minute of this whole season. And that's the first goal that the Union have conceded this year within minutes 76 through 90. And that's 3 games now that the Union have blown the lead. And that's 3 straight games that they've blown lead. So not only have they blown the lead 3 times this season, but they've done it in the last 3 games. Is that a concern for you guys? Is that something that you guys are worrying about? Is that a stat you guys even knew about? Now, are you guys going to worry about that stat? I'm not sure. I think that is something, though, that we should pay attention. And believe me, I would definitely talk about that stat a lot more if it continues to be a problem this season for the Union. Because last year we saw the Union fight back a lot of times on the road to earn a point. So, last 3 games we've seen the Union blow the lead on the road. 2 out of 3 games they've blown the lead on the road. They blew the lead against Montreal at home. So I don't know. It's something I think that as fans we should keep an eye on. Is it going to be a continued problem? And hopefully it's not. But definitely pay attention to that. This is a game that I think that Sergio Santos could have made a difference coming off the bench, going at tired legs of Nashville. Mikel and Julian did a good job just tiring the back line out of Nashville. Sergio Santos definitely could have feasted on those guys, definitely got in behind, probably could have had a couple chances, definitely would have brought the physicality that, you know, I wish Corey Burke would have brought in this game. He did not, and I'll talk about Corey Burke here in a little bit. But, you know, before I wrap up my overall thoughts, I know a lot of fans thought that the challenge by Alex Mule should have been a red card for his challenge on Jose Martinez. And for me, I think that's 50-50. I'm happy that VAR had a look at it because that's what VAR is there for. The referee does well to give her a yellow card. I think for a split second there, he was probably thinking about giving a red card, but he's like, you know what? I'll give her a yellow card here. I'll go to VAR. If it's a red card, then I'll reverse the yellow card and make it a red card. And so I think that was the right decision to play it that way. But, for me, I think Mule tried to bring his leg back from making contact because he knew there was going to be contact just because of how fast he was going in. And there obviously was contact. But I don't think there was intent because he was trying to pull his leg back. He was always going to hit Jose Martinez's leg, but at the speed, at what force was he going to do it? I think he did a good job to try to lessen the impact that he was going to have on Jose's leg. And that's what you need for those red card challenges. You need intent. And I don't think there was intent. But at the same time, it was a studs flying challenge, which normally is a red card. So for me, I think that could have been 50-50. I get why people were mad on social media, said that should have been a red card. I get why the Union players went berserk on the field wanting a red card because it's studs flying. Normally, those are red cards. The pro referee said that the studs flying challenge on Kai Wagner against Toronto should have been a red card after the fact. I wouldn't be surprised if they say midweek that, yeah, Alex Mule should have seen a red for his challenge on Jose Martinez. But, it is what it is. I have no complaints with the call, even though I'm sure some of you guys won't agree with the way that I saw it. And the only thing that I'll complain about this game is Corey Burke. And this is back-to-back weeks complaining about Corey, and I don't like recording episodes where I'm constantly complaining about the same player over and over again. So I'll try to keep it short, and I'll save you guys from boring stats. And the only stat that I'll bring up is that Corey was 1 for 5 on headers. Now, to his credit, he was going up against some of the best center backs in the league, going up against Walker Zimmerman, who's so dominant in the air. But, you're brought on to win those balls. And when you're not putting up much of a challenge for them, that's when I have a problem. That's what I have a problem with. But not even just that. The biggest moment for me with Corey Burke was, I think in the 94th minute it was, the Union had a chance to break on the counterattack, and Corey's hugging the right sideline, just walking. He's just walking. He should have been centrally because he's playing as the sole striker. And for whatever reason, he's hugging the right sideline. Okay, whatever. And if it wasn't for Quinn Sullivan's hustle, the Union wouldn't have got a corner kick from this play whatsoever. Um, if you're not going to give effort, then you don't need to be playing for this club. It's as simple as that. We've seen Ernst Tanner get rid of players that, cause an issue in the locker room, players that aren't giving 100% anymore. He's got rid of all these players. And if Corey Burke's going to be one of those players that doesn't give 100% effort game in, game out, then you got to get him out of there. People are complaining on social media saying they're done with Corey. They're fine with not bringing him back after this season. And if I had a bet, he won't be back next season. That's the whole reason why they signed Jose Villasco from Venezuela. Both of those guys have a similar playing style. Both of those guys are similarly built. But I think Jose will become more of a natural goal scorer than Corey. I don't think we have as much striker depth as we've seen people say we have when you can't rely on Sergio Santos being healthy. And I think Corey Burke is just an average MLS striker at best. That's at best. And, what I've seen from Corey this season, I'm not even sure that he's an average MLS striker. He'll get you goals every now and then, but I've not been impressed with what I've seen from Corey Burke so far this season. I know he has a couple goals, and that's all great and everything, but his last two performances for the Union haven't been great by any means. So I don't know where you guys stand as listeners on Corey Burke. Would you guys move on from him after the season? Would you guys bring him back? Am I being over dramatic? Is everything fine with Corey Burke? I don't know. Let me know what you think on social media. I've seen a lot of people, like I said, saying on Twitter that, yeah, they're fine with moving on from Corey Burke. But let's go ahead and talk about my keys to the game. So number one, I said, find ways to break Nashville down with the ball. And that moment there, that's indecisive for me because Nashville controlled more of the ball than I expected them to. We saw a really good passing sequence from the Union right before the half, which was like 25 passes. They were going from left to right, left to right. And they eventually got a shot off from, was it Bedoya? I can't remember who shot the ball. But I was going to be mad if after all those passes they didn't get a shot off. But, they were playing a lot of two-touch passes, which, Jim Curtin said after the game that, yeah, if we wanted to, we can play that style. But we prefer to hit you in the counterattack, play the long ball. That's how we're going to continue to play. We're going to surrender possession because we don't care about possessing the ball, because when we do have the ball, we're going to hit you on the break. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that approach in my opinion, but it was nice to see the Union string together a lot of very nice passing, and a goal could have came from that situation. Two, I said limit Hany Mukhtar's touches in dangerous areas. And this is where I think the Union, dominated the best in the game. This is 100% a pass. We saw Hany have 63 touches of the ball, and only 7 of those were inside the 18, where he is most dangerous. That is a phenomenal job to Jose Martinez, to Leon Flock, to Ali Bedoya, to the two fullbacks, Kai and Nate Harriel, for keeping Hany Mukhtar deeper in the field, to keep Hany Mukhtar out on the wings where he can't be dangerous inside. He was 2 for 4 on the dribbles. He only had 1 shot in this game. Yeah, just an excellent job for the Union, just always being aware where Hany Mukhtar was, and really took him out of this game. There was no moments in this game where I was nervous at all that Hany Mukhtar was going to trouble the Union. And 3, I said, you got to defend set pieces well. And man, this is a fail, unfortunately, because of the penalty that the Union conceded. But man, the Union were so dominant. Like I said, attacking and defending set pieces. If it wasn't for, that one handball situation, the Union would have cleared all 13 corners very well. Anytime that they had to throw in, the Union cleared that out, no problem. The Union fouled Nashville a couple of times, but none of the fouls were in dangerous areas. I mean, it was such a professional performance defensively, minus that one handball. And so it hurts me to say that that's a fail because the Union did give away that goal. But no, minus that moment, they did so well on set pieces. So those are my keys to the game. And I asked Jim Curtin, so how do you think that the Union did just being aware of Nashville's set piece opportunities? And this is what Jim had to say.
Yeah, we've improved, I think, quite a bit. Frank deserves a lot of credit for that. When we shifted to zone last year after we conceded a few. But if you just play the percentages, we talked about it at halftime. Against this team, the difference between heading a ball out and up the field versus over the sidelines where now it's a 40-yard throw in into your box. Clearing the ball with your right foot, maybe up the line rather than your left foot over the end line to give another corner. So you're flirting with disaster when you give 12, 13, 14 corner kicks and then on top of it throw-ins. And we paid the price, right? So, percentage-wise now, for lack of a better way to put it, when the ball's put in there 25 times, stuff can happen, right? And it did, and we were a little bit unfortunate. But at the same time, I think, on a different day we could steal all three, but a point, I think both teams worked hard, and it was a deserved point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jim's right. When you give away 13 corners where you're giving them multiple opportunities to have long throw-ins into the box, something's going to happen. It's way too many corners to concede, but it's that moment and the Corey Burke moment. And if it wasn't for those two moments, I mean, the Union did so well defensively. And I know Taylor Twellman was saying on the broadcast, "Oh, I can't believe that Ali Bedoria's on Walker Zimmerman. Wouldn't you have Jacob Glesnes or Jack Elliott, one of your two better defenders in the air?" And no, like the Union are never going to do that. Like Jim said, they switched to a zonal hybrid formation ever since Frank Leist has taken over, where they're going to leave Jacob Glesnes, Jack Elliott, Mikael Ua in zones where, all right, if the ball comes in your zone, attack it. And then everybody else is going to man mark. And I have no problem with that because the Union, up until that moment, they were one of the last teams, them in Dallas, to not concede a set piece goal this season. So I'm not concerned at that at all. Just hope that the Union can just continue to be dominant in the air on set pieces, whether it's throw-ins, whether it's corner kicks, free kicks, which I have no reason to think that they won't be. But let's go ahead and move on to my three-star players. Number 3, I'll start from 3 to 1. I don't know how I always do this every episode. Sometimes I start from 1 to 3. Sometimes it's 3 to 1. But 3, Daniel Gazdag. That was a beautiful pass to find Mikael Ua on the goal. He found a ton of space, worked his butt off defensively. Saw a great idea to try to put Bedoya in on goal, but Nashville did a very good job to intercept that pass. It was just a little bit off Daniel Gazdag. He was close. I know Daniel Gazdag made a run that I think it was in the first half where it was more of a run that you would see a striker make. I know Daniel Gazdag's playing as a 10, but at times it looks like he's playing as a false 9. And I think that's probably a better way to describe how Daniel Gazdag's been playing this season, not as a true 10. He's been playing as a false 9, making runs in from behind. Every now and then you see him drift out wide where he has a little bit of a free roll, but it's definitely not your traditional 10. And maybe that's something that I'll focus on and break down in a later episode, the way that Daniel Gazdag's been approaching the 10, because I think it's been very interesting this season. But moving on, number 2, Mikael Ua. He got the goal, but he did well, I thought, to combine with Carranza and Gazdag. And even though he had the least amount of touches out of any player on the field today, he was still able to get 3 out of 3 shots on target. 3 for 3 on the dribble. You saw his speed and how he was able to get in behind the back line in Nashville. Mikael finally had a great game for the Union with getting that goal. And I think, now the floodgates will open. It was just about getting that one off of his shoulders. And I think we'll see a lot of good things to come from Mikael Ua going forward. And Number one, Andre Blake. Again, he kept the Union in this game early, which is great for the Union because if Nashville would have scored, this would have been a whole different ballgame. Nashville would have let the Union control this game. They would have let them have the ball. They would have sat deeper than what they were sitting. They wouldn't have attacked the Union as much as they were attacking them. So if it wasn't for Andre Blake keeping the Union into this game, allowing the Union to score the first goal, yeah, I mean, I think the Union could have lost this game 2-0 instead of being a 1-1 draw. So props to Andre Blake. And I do want to go back to what I was talking about with, Daniel Gazdag, Mikael Uhre, Julian Kranjca connecting well with each other. Because I thought that the Union did a good job, a better job than what they did against Montreal with finding the space, running in from behind. And yeah, I asked Jim Curtin about that because he talked midweek how they would be working on that in training, the runs off of the ball, the runs ahead of the ball, about when to pass, when to dribble. And I thought from my perspective that the Union had a pretty good game, but this is what Jim Curtin had to say.
They make it hard centrally. They're a really good defensive team. Dax has so much experience to protect the center backs. They do a good job of releasing. But I think you saw in the moments in the first half we had a little composure, and they were few and far between, but we did play some good entries and good combinations. To beat a great defense, it's going to take a special one-touch pass that's maybe laid back and then it's played through. And the timing has to be just right because otherwise Romney, Zimmerman, they eat up those plays. So I thought it was good, not great. There's always room for improvement. We didn't win today, so I'm not completely satisfied, but I do recognize the effort the guys put in. Those attacking movements will get better as the year goes on, as we understand each other better. And I think, credit to Daniel Gazdag today. He was excellent. He was all over the field. Sometimes the runs could be timed a little better and the movement could be better ahead of them. But overall, I thought, it's getting better, but we still have work to do.
Yeah, for sure. The Union could always improve, always make changes. The Union definitely aren't at their best, and nobody expects them to be at their best. You want to be playing your best soccer come playoff time. And so, it's a long season ahead. And the Union, I'm not worried about the chances that, that they are missing. Not worried about the chances that they should be creating. So none of that stuff I'm concerned about at all. But let's go ahead before we end the podcast. Let's go ahead and talk about the breakdown of the goal. So I'll start with the Daniel Gazdag goal at first. It comes from a offensive throw-in from Nashville that they completely botch. So Lovitz takes the throw-in, throwing to Hany Mukhtar, and as soon as the ball is thrown in, Nate Harrell is right on Hany Mukhtar. And because of that pressure, Hany Mukhtar takes a good touch, bad pass, tries to pass to Sean Davis, mishits the pass. Daniel Gazdag bounces on it. And because of this, and the Union are able to hit Nashville on the counterattack. The center backs for Nashville are caught out of position. Daniel Gazdag is able to turn, let the ball run off of him a little bit. And because he's able to look ahead, he sees that the center backs are out of position for Nashville. He sees that Mikael Uhre is just making a run between two of the center backs for Nashville, and he's going to go ahead and play that ball into space. It's a beautifully timed ball that gets by Romney and Walker Zimmerman for Nashville. Mikael takes a great touch. Walker Zimmerman does a good job to get in position, but as good as that touch was, it was a great turn for Mikael Uhre to go ahead and set the ball up on his right. And once he does that, he's able to put the ball in the back of the net. Good finish. But this is what we've talked about last year a ton, not having a striker that has a good first touch. And we've seen it a couple times already this year. Mikael Uhre's first touch is so clinical. And it's great to see him finally get that goal. Joe Willis, as soon as he sees Mikael Uhre take that touch onto his right foot, he's coming out of the goal to try to throw Mikael off, but he's nice and composed. And you saw after the play that felt like just all the pressure just fell off his shoulders, and now you feel like there's going to be a lot more to come. And for the goal that the Union gave up, the penalty kick, you go ahead and see that obviously it comes from a corner kick. It comes off of Jose Martinez. So Hany Mukhtar is going to take the corner. Again, like I was talking about earlier, the Union play in a hybrid formation when they're defending corners, where you have Jack Elliott, Jacob Glesnes defending their zones. Corey Burke, one of your taller players, he was defending his zone. Where you have Kai Wagner, you have Quinn Sullivan, you have Jose Martinez and Ali Bedoya all marking where they need to be. Nate Harriel was also at the front post. So when Nashville takes this corner kick, they're going to send 4 guys to go ahead and run towards the front post and just to cause confusion. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Walker Zimmerman throws off everybody. He misses the header, and the ball bounces straight onto Jose Martinez's arm. And there's nothing that Jose could have done about that situation. I guess, you can complain about why was Jose's arm in that position, but it was a clever corner kick from Nashville to send that many guys to attack the front post. And yeah, because of that, a lot of focus from the Union defenders went towards those 3 to 4 guys that ran to the front post, and the ball takes an unlucky bounce and hits Jose on his arm, and it's a penalty kick, and then Leal scores the penalty. No sense of breaking down the penalty, right? Breaking down the play, sure, but the penalty, it is what it is. So that's pretty much my thoughts from this game. You take the point. I'll be honest, I thought the Union would probably concede first in this game, and to see the Union come in here and score first and, be so close to stealing all 3 points on the road, it's a hard pill to swallow. But like I said earlier, you take points on the road, and at the end of the season, this could be a big point that we look ahead to and say, wow, like that point in Nashville makes all the difference for the Union to host a playoff game, to not host a playoff game. Hopefully it doesn't come down to that, but, it potentially could be one of those moments. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, follow at Free Kick Pod, where you get your podcast, The Free Kick. And like I said, I enjoyed getting my thoughts out there about Nashville, but again, just very much so looking forward to the podcast that I'm going to record and release on Tuesday, May 3rd. I haven't even recorded it yet, but I think it's going to be a fantastic episode that I'm going to enjoy doing, but you guys are going to enjoy listening. So be on the eye for that. And once it's released, please share that episode everywhere. Tell everybody you know about that episode, because I think it's going to be a great episode. So until Tuesday, you guys enjoy your Monday. All you guys that are in Nashville, flying back, driving back, safe travels back home. And with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.